Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. In today's episode, a district manager creates the dumbest rule imaginable, then watches $5,000 worth of food go straight into the trash. We've also got barbecue sabotage, cold-blooded coworkers, a spotlight hogging student who crashes hard, and one employee who uses corporate logic to dodge extra responsibilities like a pro. 5 stories from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Some funny, some brutal, all deliciously petty. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from the Fawns, cold as ice. This happened today at work. I manage a bar and restaurant. We had a long weekend and everyone, to include myself, is noticeably ready for the day to be over. But at this point, it had only just started. I had stopped by the gas station on my way in and grabbed a couple of energy drinks and a Powerade to get me through the shift. As I intended to space out the time between them to maximize their effectiveness, I placed the second energy drink and the Powerade in the canned beer well to keep them cold. While placing them in the well, I noticed there is very little ice in them, and we are now currently open for business. As is required from time to time, I approach my bartenders and say, "Hey guys, beer wells are looking light on ice. Let's get some more ice on them so our products stay cold." To which I receive some exasperated but light-hearted sighs. We are a pretty relaxed establishment most of the time, providing things get done as they should be. So I pull out my disappointed dad voice and say, "Come on guys, y'all know the drill." Fast forward 5 hours into the shift, and I go to grab my drink. Imagine my surprise when I arrive at the aforementioned beer well with an accompaniment of uproarious laughter to find the well properly iced down, save the very corner I had placed my drinks, which now resembles a scaled model of Mount Everest. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Abbreviations OK178. It says, "Why didn't you help fill the ice if you had time? Or is it more just a power thing for you?" OP responded and said, "It wasn't a power thing, just a procedural thing. The tone may have not been apparent, but I was in no way upset or angry at them. It was a simple reminder to ensure their opening duties were being done." I think this commenter failed to realize that OP is the manager of the bar and restaurant, and it's completely okay for them to remind their staff of what their jobs actually are and what's supposed to be done when they're open and ready for customers. It is pretty obvious with the lighthearted malicious compliance in this story that OP and the workers get along just fine, and they're willing to play little pranks on each other every once in a while too. That to me sounds like a great workplace, although we've only seen a little bit, so we don't know for sure, I'll give you that. This story comes to us from The Farzin. Grill Tyrant tried to hog the spotlight, so I smoked him out with a sneaky twist. I hope you like it. So last summer, I'm at this neighborhood barbecue, sun's out, beers are cold, and I'm ready to flex my smoked ribs game. Think tender, smoky perfection that steals the show. It's a chill potluck vibe, but then this dude, let's call him Karen, crowns himself grill overlord and lays down the law like he's guarding the holy flame. "No one uses the grill but me," he says, flipping burgers like he's on a cooking show. "One dish at a time, mine first, then maybe you'll get a shot." I'm standing there, cooler in hand like, "Bro, it's a huge grill. Can't I just toss my ribs on the side? They need time." "Nope, one at a time, my rules." He's smirking, so I bite my tongue. "Alright, Karen, let's see how this cooks." He does his burger thing, taking forever, while my ribs chill in their marinade. Crowd's eating, but I'm plotting. His turn's done, he waves me in. "Go ahead." Here's where I get petty, and a little sneaky. I'd smoked the ribs at home for a couple hours that morning, low and slow, 3-2-1 style, but just the first stretch. Wrapped them tight, brought them ready to finish. Not fully pre-cooked, just prepped to win. I fire up the grill, slide the ribs on, and sneak a foil tray of applewood chips in the corner. Smoke rolls out, thick, sweet, pure temptation. Karen's over there chomping on his burger when heads start turning. "What's that smell?" People wander over, noses up, drooling already. I'm brushing sauce, all chill. Just ribs, takes a bit, hope that's cool. His burgers? Yesterday's news. The mob's around me now, begging for a taste. He storms up, "You're smoking out my grill." One dish at a time, right? I'm just following orders. I flip a rib, smoke curling like a victory flag. He tries to elbow in, "Let me cook." Nah, my turn's still going, your rule. I stretch it, tending the ribs, tweaking the chips, chatting up the crowd about low and slow magic. Takes over an hour. And by then, Karen's reign is ash. Everyone's piling ribs, raving, while his burger tray sits there, sad and cold. Night ends, host slaps my shoulder. "Dude, you own the grill next time. Say less." Karen thought he'd rule the barbecue, but I smoked him out with a half-cooked plan, and a whole lot of petty. Prep the ribs early? Sure. Worth it to watch him choke on his own rule? Heck yeah. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Reddit user 04334950. It says, "I'm fat, so I'd eat cheeseburgers while waiting for ribs." OP responded and said, "You're the legend in my heart." Another commenter down below called NeatTap2274 said, "The fact that he thought he could rule the roost by grilling hamburgers is all we need to know about that guy." Alright, I'm on both sides of the fence for this one because there can be some pretty amazing burgers, but usually the overconfident person who thinks that their stuff is the best makes the worst ones possible. Funny how that works. But I also want to mention that doing ribs can be extremely difficult, and it does take skill to get them to come out perfectly. So, OP, good on you. I'd say you won. This story also comes to us from The Farzin. You want the spotlight? Enjoy! In university, we had a team project on programming. I was unlucky with my partner. He kept slacking off and did absolutely nothing. I tried to get him involved, but all I heard was the same thing. "I'll do it later. I don't understand. But you're better at this." Okay, fine. I did everything myself. During the defense, I was supposed to present the project and answer questions, while he just stood there, nodding and pretending to understand. I even explained the main points to him so he wouldn't look completely lost. And then, just a second before I step forward, this individual jumps in front of me and, throwing over his shoulder, says, "I'll do everything, you just enjoy it," and steps onto the stage. Alright, I complied. And it was fun. He crumbled within the first minutes. He stumbled, mixed up terms, and explained the code wrong. The professor started grilling him with questions, and he just dug himself deeper into a hole. Eventually, they turned to me. "Can you explain?" Without emotion, I replied, "Sure," as my partner already explained, and gave a clear explanation of the project, looking perfect in contrast to him. I got a great grade. He got penalty assignments and a public dressing down from the professors. And yes, his lady in the audience looked at him as though he died right on stage. And no, this isn't the story where the strong take advantage of the weak. I was a healthy first-year student, and he was a skinny, weak, but overconfident student whose boldness outweighed his physical size. In a comment down below, OP added a little bit more. It says, "By the way, he ultimately failed his exams in the second year and was expelled. Up until that point, he had shown some very ugly behavior. From manipulating insecure girls to making them do his work, to outright parasitism towards other teammates. He was like a cartoonish character whose existence is hard to believe." Alright, on to the comments. We have one from a user with a name that I just can't pronounce. It says, "These people exist in virtual courses as well. Whenever there was a group project, you could count on at least one person dropping the ball and ghosting the team. They'd reappear right before the due date, explaining that a family member had cancer and they needed care. So many people with cancer." So they say that college doesn't really prepare you for the working world, but these team assignments with one person not pulling their weight, or multiple people not pulling their weight, and one person doing all the work, well, in my experience, that sounds like quite a few workplaces that I've been in. Fortunately for OP, they weren't graded as a group and got individual grades on the project, because if it was group grading, OP would have been screwed. This story comes to us from Dr. Deadpool. Employees are not allowed to leave the break room on their break. Whatever. This happened a few years ago when I worked at McDonald's. The one I worked in was near a bunch of schools, so most of the staff was high school kids. As summer vacation started, we began having the trouble of an employee getting break and then spending their break eating their meal and conversating with their friends who were still working in the kitchen. It was having a seriously bad effect on productivity, as well as posing quite a few health risks, so our manager finally initiated a rule that if you were on your break, you couldn't leave the break room until your break was over. This went swimmingly until the kids went back to school. We then had a new problem. Short staffing during break cycles meant our ticket times would skyrocket during rushes. Management lifted the rule so that employees on break could clock in early and help out with the rush. However, the district manager didn't like the implications of employees working shortened or no break shifts and forcefully reinstated the rule. They also doubled down by saying that employees who tried to work during their scheduled break would be written up and or terminated for doing so. Cue malicious compliance. The date was 4/20, a day when nobody wants to be working at any fast food place, much less McDonald's. We had been getting slammed so hard from the open of the store that we called in extra help from other stores, including the regional and district managers. As the break cycle began, the management was pleased with the sub 2-minute ticket times they had managed to maintain. A few breaks through and we were managing well. Then came my break. As soon as I sat down to eat, someone came into the store and ordered 47 double quarter pounders. This was right after the Fresh initiative where all quarter pounders were made fresh, so this was already a minor panic. Immediately after that order, someone in the drive-thru ordered 75 20-piece nugget meals. The amount of panic in the kitchen was palpable. I was comfortably lounging in a chair, browsing my phone, and enjoying my meal while the kitchen struggled to keep up with the orders. As the ticket times began to soar, the management did exactly as I expected. District manager came into the break room and demanded me to end my break early and help in the kitchen. My response was very simply, "I'm sorry, but according to the rules you made, I can be written up or terminated for completing your request." I then continued browsing my phone, trying to enjoy the last 10 minutes of my break. The regional manager entered the room and said that he would personally terminate me if I didn't do the thing that I wasn't supposed to do. The other employee who was on break with me immediately rose and clocked in, despite still having 10 minutes left on her break. She was written up for breaking the rule after the shift was over, so I felt good sitting in my chair and continuing to ignore them. In the aftermath, the people who made the giant orders took what was made after half an hour and left with refunds for the unmade food, nearly $150 each. Customers who were waiting for smaller orders were compensated with gift cards for their patience, yet many walked out without even getting their orders. We paid out nearly $1,500 in gift cards. Because customers were walking out on orders without collecting them, we had nearly $5,000 in food waste that night. All of the closers went home with nearly 2 bundle boxes of burgers, fries, and nuggets. Regional and district manager were moved to a different region. The rule was edited to say that you were able to clock back in early at the manager's discretion in the event of a rush. Because I was the only employee who held his ground against the regional and district managers during the rush, I was rewarded with free meals and drinks until I moved away from my hometown and couldn't eat at that McDonald's anymore. Although, when I come to visit friends, I occasionally get rung up a manager discount by the few employees who still remember me. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called DillyDally4. It says, "I mean, the issue seems to be with the big orders, not necessarily the break rules. Could one more person really have helped to keep the orders flowing? Seems the customers needed educated on what time they could return to pick up their giant orders, especially if they pulled that crap during rush hour. Easier said than done, I know." Another commenter down below called Spartan B019 said, "Managers should have been in the drive-thru window with an 'I'm sorry sir, but unless we have 24 hours notice, we cannot supply that large of an order. If you'd like to place that order for tomorrow, you'll have to come inside to do so.' But nope, got a effing power trip over your own darn shoelaces right into coupons and refund land, and writing your own employees up for doing what you told them to." Alright, I don't know what the labor laws are wherever OP is, but I know that where I am in Ontario, Canada, for every 5 hours worked, they have to give you a 30-minute unpaid break. So in this case, if they were doing no break shifts that were over 5 hours, where I am, that would be against labor law, and they could get in a lot of trouble for that. In fact, where I am, I think if they interrupt your unpaid break at any time and ask you to clock back in, the clock actually starts over again and they have to pay you for all of the time and give you a new 30-minute unpaid break. That's the rules where I am anyway, but let me know what the rules are where you are in the comments down below. This story comes to us from Chris Happy. Fiscal responsibility. Alright then. About 20 years ago, I worked for a small state agency where supervisors, quality review, and trainers were all the same pay scale, and you could transfer from one area to the other. One of the soups was promoted to area manager, 4 areas in the state, and our office dynamics changed. Normally, these 3 classifications were backups for the security system, manager was fully responsible, and if the manager and all the soups were out of the office, one of us, slightly lesser, reviewers and trainers, was in charge. Fast forward 6 months, upper management scheduled a 2-day training for the manager and the soups. I make the mistake of asking who's in charge while they are gone. New manager looks at me and says, "None of you are in charge since you don't have the fiscal responsibility that I and the soups have." It was said in a put you in your place voice. Me, nearing retirement, thinks, cool, one less headache for me. What I said was, glad to know that. Fast forward 4 months and it's time to rotate the security system backup team. Manager looks at me and my partner and says that it's QR's turn. I looked at the manager and said, it would seem that if QR doesn't have fiscal responsibility and can't be in charge when management is out, then QR can't be responsible for security backup. My manager opened her mouth, shut her mouth, and turned an interesting hue of red. We get out of the meeting, and my partner and the trainers are all happy as I am. The 4 soups, not so much. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, edit, security system backup means there is a person who not only sets the alarms at the end of work, but also responds to any calls from the security company. It's manager's responsibility, but if manager's on vacation, somebody has to resolve that issue. The manager had an aversion to answering the phone when off work. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Real Ultimate Papo. It says, love when someone has no other option but to stew in their own stupidity. Even better when their face betrays them. See, now, I tried things like this with my old boss Rick when I was working for him, and it would go over okay for a couple of minutes, but then the rest of the day, he'd treat me even more like crap than he already was. I need to pop in my regular screw you Rick here, because really, screw you Rick. Anyway, that's the last story for today. If you enjoyed it, or if you've had your own screw you Rick moment, hit that like button and subscribe for more daily Reddit stories just like this. And hey, drop your own screw you Rick story in the comments. I love reading them, and maybe we'll start a little therapy group down there. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. And for real, Rick, if you're somehow out there watching this, you know what you did.